I have to say that I've made the closest friendships from playing string music, the Mendelssohn Octet, the Brahms B-flat Sextet, the Mozart C major viola quintet. I mean, music, who was it that said where words end, music begins? So, of course, music is a way of saying things that you can't ordinarily with your mouth, but you take that at least 3 or 4 steps further when you play with other people. I've made friends just from having played these particular pieces without ever having had to exchange verbal words, words verbally.
You got married that way.
I got married that way. I've made friends at Marlborough just from having sat down and worked on pieces like this and gone on tour with the Brahms Sextet. Peter Wiley, the cellist in your quartet, he became one of my best friends just from having played that sextet over and over every night. We said things to each other that we would never say over coffee. So I'm indebted to these pieces for enriching my life, both socially and musically.
Chamber music is a great singles scene.
It's a way to pick up people.
Pick up guys and gals.
That's why we're bars.
But it's strangely intimate that way. Actually bring up an interesting point. I mean, there's a false sense of intimacy, or maybe it's not false. Maybe it's actually incredibly real, that is palpable and sometimes strange, because there's been no normal interaction. This is sort of, out of ourselves. And as you say, you get the real core of a person from playing works like that together.
The intimacy is so palpable that sometimes it's of an embarrassment.
Yes, it's embarrassing.
You play a phrase with someone that you don't really know all that much about, and you don't even want to meet eyes because the intimacy is so intense.
Yes, that's the
what's happened to me.
Isn't that the miracle? Isn't that the miracle?
That's why we live.
Isn't that the miracle? It's more intimate than anything. Isn't it?
But it's also a little bit like a circus act, when you have acrobats whose life depend on each other by holding their hands. This is the same thing without the danger, in a sense.
A lot of danger.
Well, no, there's danger in playing music, period. But I'm saying there's more positive. The circus act has positive intimacy and yet has a lot of negatives. You slip and the other one is dead. Here you slip and it's your problem. More than the other ones. So there's less.
I think you've saved me a couple times.
But I think it enhances the joy of music. That when you're alone there, the sense of danger is more.
But that sometimes is a false comfort, because some people feel that, I'm speaking about it now from the standpoint of a pianist. I can't make it as my career as a great soloist. I'm going to play chamber music. Well, they may very well play chamber music, but they don't play chamber music any better than they play the other kind of music.
Miracles don't happen.
Actually, the requirement of a good chamber musician is greater than a soloist, I think.
It's more treacherous in that you have to also react to something else, but that ought to be ecstasy. It ought to be a great pleasure. My idea of hell is playing Mozart piano concertos with woodwinds in the background trailing behind me all the time.
That can happen in chamber
We all
music,
know. Well,
Then you can say something.
That you quickly do that.
Yeah.
That's quickly rectified.
No, but there are extra musical skills that are involved in playing chamber music. I mean, psychology, for instance, is an incredibly important factor in being with other people, but especially playing with other people. If the idea is to bring out the best in whoever sits next to you or across from you, you have to start unlocking that person from the minute you sit down. What's going to bring out the best in you is not necessarily the same as what's going to, bring out your strengths. And so that's what I find the most interesting and rewarding part is that it's the total person.
I've given a very entertaining masterclass about working together and what that means, of what you're saying. And I often will then interject, you said, and then I'll repeat what they said in a very dulcet tone of voice, what did you really mean? And they usually don't say anything because they're young people embarrassed. But I say, did you mean, it's much too fast? And it's always exactly right. They feel like this inside. And yet, to bring the best out is part of the negotiation. Each person in a chamber music group has to become a great CEO, a great manager, knowing how to get the best out of other people.